Hello, this is Brian Funk, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm very excited to announce that my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, is now available in paperback form, a real book that you can hold and touch and turn to any page you like in a second. And it's a pretty big book, 629 pages of activities, exercises, and wisdom I've learned over the years. It's available on Amazon.com. The 5-Minute Music Producer is 365 music-making activities that will help with your songwriting and music production. It'll help you fight writer's block, make more music, write better lyrics, develop solid workflows, learn techniques for generating ideas, and finish more music. It's like having your very own music production personal trainer giving you ideas and challenges each day. And the best part is the challenges are quick and easy, and they only take a few minutes. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can spend 5 minutes and advance your music production skills. There's no better time to improve your music than now. Imagine where you'll be after a year of these activities. The 5-Minute Music Producer has hit the #1 new release in the music songwriting and music recording and sound categories on Amazon. So check out the 5-Minute Music Producer, 365 music-making activities. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can go to brianfunk.com/book. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. And on today's show, I have the man who holds the world record of most music production podcast appearances, as well as the first guest that was ever on the podcast. That's right. Yeah. It's Ben Burns. What's
up,
Ben?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, man. Good to see you.
We were talking a little bit beforehand, and it's like it's wild that you're in the 300 and teens now for episodes. It's really incredible that you're at it, and there's so much variety between like who you talk to and what you talk about. I really love checking these out. So I'm glad you kept at it.
It's been a wild ride, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I had you on back on day one, it was, I didn't know if I could even do it. Like, can I even talk to anybody that long? It was kind of like a gamble. Whether you knew that or not, I don't know, but It was definitely kind of like, okay, let's see if I can do it. But you made it easy, and it's been such a great journey. I'm so glad I did this.
It's been 5 years now, give or take. Like, when was
6? Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we just got to 6 years.
That's
it was like the beginning of March 2017, and here we are towards the end of March 2017. Or no, it's 2023.
Yeah, whatever. It all blurs
whatever
together.
Year we're in.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember like how we first connected, and I can't really place it. I don't know if it was through like the Ableton groups. Like, I know you were on the Ableton subreddits for a while, weren't you?
I was actually banned from the Ableton Reddit at one point. I guess I was posting too many free live packs, which I thought since they were free, it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I got banned. I wasn't allowed. I'm seem to be back allowed on it, which is cool. Thanks for forgiving me. And it could have been there. I know you were on that podcast Composer Quest, which was
that's what it was. Yeah.
A great podcast that I loved.
Yeah.
And kind of an inspiration for me too. Like, kind of like, hey, this was a really cool show. I want to do something in this vein, so I'd heard you on that show.
Yep, I was a repeat. I have a bad habit of being a repeat on people's podcasts, and I don't know if that's because I annoy people to come back on or if I'm fun to talk to. But I think I was on Composer Quest 3 times, maybe it was 2 times, but it was a couple times. Charlie McCarran he's still out there. He's doing like board game stuff now. He's like doing game development and other stuff. So he's a very, very busy guy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I can understand why, he moved on past the podcast. But it's a great show. Just because it's no longer going on and it's a few years old now, there's still, it's timeless stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's definitely a great show to listen to. Maybe,
Absolutely.
can I ask you to
Sure.
tell people how you describe what you do? Because you got your hands in a lot of things. And
Yeah.
since we've talked you up as being like a good person to have on a podcast, maybe you can give yourself a little
Well,
more credit than saying you just bother
sure.
people, because there's good
No,
reason for that.
I do bother people, but so every week, like primarily one of the main projects that I work on is every week I do something called the 2-hour track challenge, where I sit down and I create a song from start to finish over the course of 2 hours. This is live on Twitch. So I usually work in Ableton. I have audience feedback. We kind of collaborate sometimes if I get stuck, and we work together and we make a song. And like I said, I've been doing that for about 7 years. I think I did episode like 200 or 370 something yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, 375, I think it was. So I've been doing that for a very long time. And beyond that, I do game development. I do voice acting. I have kind of a lot of just random weird things. I love talking about creativity and kind of exploring all the facets of not only just like being a creator, but how to improve like your mindset and your goals, and like kind of building a structure around a business as being a creator, rather than just kind of flinging stuff out into the ether and hoping for the best. So yeah, I like to talk about a lot of different things, and I'm, it's kind of what I like to do. Whether or not that gets me on any other podcasts. If you do a podcast, reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah, and those are some of the reasons why it's fun to talk to you, because you are incredibly prolific with and consistent too. I mean, it's every week you do the 2-hour track challenge where you make a song in 2 hours.
Yes.
You're up to 375, you said.
Correct.
Which, that's 7+ years if you're doing it weekly.
Yes, it's a
And
little over
weekly,
7
right?
years. Yeah, it's every week.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
And
so
good crazy, of course. But.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of both.
Well, yeah, I guess it's just a little bit of a compulsion that you gotta have.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Like what's the Seinfeld thing where it's like you start a streak and you don't want to break that streak.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't. There have been weeks where I take like a week off, or like I go on vacation, but I tend to go and like do 2 challenges the week before, so I have a queue. So I count that as still like doing a song a week, even though I'm just kind of like putting one in the chamber for next week. And another thing that I like to do is the NASO Elmo, or the National Solo Album Month, which is in November. Usually for that, in the month prior in October, I just do 2 challenges a week. So I queue up all of November's songs in October. So then I have the whole month free to make an album, and just kind of just jam out particular concepts that I might have floating around.
The November one, now I'm familiar with the February one.
Yes, the RPM challenge. I've done that one before too, but missing out on the extra 3 days because February is so short.
Yeah.
I really like the November one. It fits better with my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really amazing that you do that, and inspiring, and takes a level of commitment and discipline. And to hear that you sometimes are doubling up, that's really impressive. And
yeah,
you've also got a podcast for your Patreons, which is pretty cool. That I see on your YouTube channel, and it comes up once in a while, and it's kind of like your thoughts and a little wisdom and whatever it is you're kind of going through, a little piece of your mind.
Yeah, sometimes it's more just like personal blogging, but a lot of the times it's like I said, like I just like have random ideas, and these podcast episodes are like 5 minutes long or 10 minutes long. It's just like, I had this idea, let's explore it for a couple minutes and talk about it. And, sometimes it goes somewhere, and sometimes it's just like, it's an interesting thought, but I don't really know how to apply it anywhere. And I really like it. I started that a long time ago, with something called the Creative Exploration series, where I was actually recording video and doing like a talking head thing. And it was fun, but it was exhausting. And really the content, the meat of the whole thing is just me talking anyway, which can be done in audio. And I just ended up turning it into a podcast. And just like when I was still driving into work, it was before the pandemic, I just like drive into work and park, and I just talk into my phone for 10 minutes. And then when I connected to my work internet, I just upload that to Patreon, and it's like, that's the thing for the week. And it's just, I just queued up a bunch of them over the course of a couple of years. And, now I've been making new ones again, but it's fun to just kind of think of an idea and explore it in various ways. And sometimes, you come up with a revelation, but usually it's just kind of like, this is a neat thought, but I don't really know where that goes.
Mm. I've found that just talking about this stuff and trying to verbalize your ideas helps you understand it for yourself too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like the really great thing about posting it and putting it somewhere public is that you can get other people's thoughts and opinions on it too. It allows you to kind of create a discourse through that. And even though it's not always going to be like, you're not going to gather a throng of followers or anything through that, but people that are regularly like consuming your content, like you can have conversations and you can have like actual interactions with people through that. And I think that that's really valuable too. And everybody has a different perspective on creativity. And I think that that's why it's so interesting, because it's just kind of an amalgam of how everybody kind of works together, like all their experiences in life, kind of how they all came together. And everybody has a different experience for, how to express themselves. And I think that it's really interesting to see everybody's different thoughts on the same idea.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes just hearing the same thing that you kind of already know in a different way is just really valuable. It gets you thinking, gets you processing things in a different way.
Yeah.
You're also a big cat lover, and your cat is in the background for anyone watching this, putting on a little bit of like a silhouette show through the curtain. Just kind of moving around, having a good time. That looks like a good spot in the sun right by the window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been building a catio over through this window, so eventually they'll be able to go through the screen. We'll have a little flap, and then they can sit outside in the warm times. I'm in Minnesota, so it's like 30 degrees right now, so all the windows are very closed. But in the future, this summer, hopefully they'll have a good spot to sit outside and get some extra sun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I gotta imagine, like, right now, in fact, in my Berkeley Online class, the Ableton Live sampling class, everyone's working on their final project and they're trying to finish a song.
Oh boy.
Right? So they've been making little pieces that are experiments with different sampling techniques and having a lot of fun trying things out, but now it's time to apply it. And there's, even though, I don't know, there's 15 people or so in the class, and somebody's representing one certain stage of the process, some problem, some holdup, that pretty much, like, everything has been covered by all the people in the class. So, there's so many challenges along the way. And you managed to put together a piece of music every single week. And, I was on Apple Music looking at your just like list of albums. And it just keeps going and going and going. And I can't really think of anyone else on Apple Music that has that many albums. I'm like, I have to like look at like Bob Dylan maybe, or somebody like that.
If you look at other musicians for like game development and other stuff like that who put out albums for games, like I would imagine Big Giant Circles has a lot of albums. Actually, the person that got me inspired to be more prolific as an artist was Disasterpiece, who did the music for Fez, the movie It Follows. And there's a lot of other ones he's been a part of, but those are the two that come to mind right now. And back in like 2013 or 2014, I was looking at his website because he was a huge influence on me. And there was the same thing where it's just like I kept scrolling and scrolling, and I'm like, oh my God, he's just done so much. And I recently was looking at my own website, and I have a big list of all of my albums, and I was like, oh man, that's a lot. So I'm really like proud of the journey that I've had over the last decade, just focus on making things and learning how to finish things, because that is a really tough skill to acquire. And I mean, and that's kind of the big problem with finishing things is you have to have something to finish in order to practice the act of finishing something. If that makes any sense. Like, you can start things all day. It's easy to start something, but you have to have something to finish it. And that process of getting to the point where you can even start determining whether this is good enough to finish, like, am I happy with this product? Like, that takes time and that takes investment. And the more you invest in something, the more you want to make it, perfect. And that striving for perfection is a really dangerous trap, because you could end up working on the same thing for, weeks or months, when really it probably could have been done, forever ago. But that's all personal preference too. I'm not saying that you should just ship everything as soon as it's done, or as soon as you think it's done. Like, sometimes it's good to let it sit for a week and then come back to it, or, tweak it more. But I feel that it's so important to realize, when something is done or good enough, and then you can just kind of either set it aside or just ship it out there and work on the next thing, because otherwise you can spend your whole life, working on one project, and there's a lot of other projects that you probably want to do.
Yeah. And that's the last step, finishing. So you have to get through all of the other steps first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not even like there's a number you can put on it. I think of it more just like a gradual, like, gradient from start to finish. It's not like stage 4, stage 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like rolls into it.
Yeah.
What is it like for you? You said, like, not chasing perfectionism is, I mean, that has to be something we all come to terms with on some level. But for you, what is where's the bar, I guess? It's not perfectionism, but I'm sure it's not just on the floor either. So
it's, that's a really good question. I never really tried to quantify that before. If I like it, I guess, which is like not really an answer. It's just, but I feel if I'm comfortable and if I'm happy with the thing that I made, like, that's usually good enough for me. There have definitely been times, during the 2-hour track challenge streams where I'm just like not happy with a song, and it's just like, the timer's running low. I just got to finish this. And then I finish it, and it's like, okay. I think that's one of the really nice things about having a timer, like a hard deadline for what you're doing, because then that you're not going to be spending the next, 2 weeks of your life working on something that doesn't make you happy. It's just like, I just pushed through the end of this song. The timer's up. I'm done. Like, just move on to the next thing. And, hopefully you learn something through that process, even if that knowledge you gained was, I don't like doing it this way, like, just kind of growing and trying to understand, like, how you work as an artist is really valuable. And really, even yesterday when I did my stream, I struggled a lot. It was actually a 3-hour track challenge because I scrapped the project an hour and a half in. I was just like, this isn't working for me. I don't like this. And I started over, and I ended up making like a kind of like a lo-fi house song. And I really like how it ended up, but I've been struggling with like some neck pain, and I think I was sick earlier this week. And it's just like, mentally I wasn't all the way there. And, I struggled quite a bit to get the momentum. And I think that, like, a lot of that with the time challenges and stuff is you get that momentum, and you just, once you start moving, you kind of know how to fit the pieces into place. But when you're dealing with that empty canvas and you just don't know how to start, that can be really, really difficult too. So I got a little off track from your original question.
No. It all applies. I mean, just kind of wondering if it's like, so this always makes me think of January, right? Where you're trying to make a song every day or something every day.
Yeah.
It's funny to hear you say that's hard because I'm like 2-hour track challenge every week sounds hard. at least January ends in 30 something days, right? So
there's that, but like the 2-hour track challenge, like I'm investing 3 hours a week, like 2 hours to make the song, an hour for like kind of administrative to cut the video and push it online and all that other stuff. So it's like I'm investing 3 hours a week, which is doable. But January and some of the other, like what's just like November Beat is the other one, like the one in November,
like Beattober, and that's one like
there's one like every month, which is awesome because it's a great place to practice. But like that is investing like an hour or two a day, depending on how complex you want to be with that kind of stuff, and like that is exhausting. I've done that before. I think this was like when the Video Game Music Academy was like doing monthly like challenges every day for like a month or something. And I did 1 or 2 of those, and man, I was beat after that. I think there was one in July, like in 2018 or something. So I can do the creativity on demand thing, but I need a period of time between that and the next time I do it, like good 3 or 4 days, and then I can try again.
Well, what happens is you are like just trying to get it done sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I like when I get to the spot where I don't even worry about it as far as, is this any good? It's like, it's just what happened today. It's not even it's like a diary entry almost at that point.
Oh yeah.
And it takes like 20 days to get to that point where you can kind of just be like, whatever, man. I'm racing to the end. I'm just trying to make it.
Yeah. And I think, that goes back to the point where it's just like sometimes having a deadline is just a good way of just doing something. Like it's like going to the gym. Like you go and get your reps in, and it's like, I don't really care as long as I go and I do the thing. And like, I did it. That's great. I'll do it again tomorrow. It doesn't really matter like what the byproduct of that is, like what the song or the art that I made is. That's not important. The important thing is that I like put effort into just going and trying to do the thing, and having those kind of deadlines, whether it's daily or like once a week or even once a month, like just having those goals is really, really valuable.
I can find myself sometimes in this almost exploratory mindset where I come up with something to start with, and it's usually like, I just need something. Let's go. Here are the chords. Here's the beat. Whatever I decide. And it stops being like, is this good? Is this artistic enough? Is this expressing my deep inner, you know what I mean? Is this intelligent enough? And it more becomes like, I wonder what this is going to turn out like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a little less of, it's like, I'm just looking around. Like I was on a boat in the like 1400s. Like, where are we going to wind up today?
I like that.
I hope it's a good place, but it's just, we're going to get somewhere, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that speaks to just the willingness to create more things rather than focusing on one singular thing, where it's just like the more things you do, the more exploration you have, the more opportunities you have to find yourself at a really interesting spot. Because there's definitely been some 2-hour track challenges I've made where I'm just like, oh man, it's fine. It's not great, but it's, I did a thing, whatever. And then there's like some of the songs that I've made during this 2-hour challenge are like my favorite songs, even more so than the ones that I've, put dozens or whatever hours into for albums. Like, I could look through my list, but there's one that I made a couple weeks ago. I think it's called Geomorphology, where it's just like somebody on a YouTube video used that word. I'm like, that's a cool word. I'm going to make a song using that word, which just means like how rivers carve into the earth and like change the terrain, where like rivers kind of move over, centuries or whatever. They kind of fluctuate, and that's what geomorphology is. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make a song with this. And then I did, and it's like it's a super cool, like chill, jazzy song, and it turns out to be one of my favorites. Actually, a lot from season 22, which is the current one. Season 22 has a lot of really good songs in it, which I'm pleased with. But just, what is it? Quality through quantity is something that I like to say, where it's just like, you learn how to be better by doing a lot of different things. You don't really grow a whole lot on one particular project unless you're just starting out. You get that growth from starting a lot of things and then just kind of seeing where they go, and then starting something else and not getting too attached on any particular thing.
Yeah, I agree to that philosophy too. I use that in school with my students. I give them grades on their notebook just on how much they write. If you write every 3 pages you get 10 points. And if you get to 30, you get 100. If you get to 50, I give you points on your report card, just extra points. Whatever your grade was, I add some points on.
Yeah.
And it's just to encourage that. Just do it often. I think, you mentioned like going to the gym, and I think same thing with going to the gym or exercise. I find myself getting a lot more out of doing short workouts every day than like 2 or 3 big workouts a week.
Yeah. It's easier to maintain too, where like scheduling wise, you can build a daily routine rather than like, and it's good to have a weekly routine too. But like, I find that for me anyway, it's easier to have a daily routine where it's like, right before I have lunch, I go downstairs and I sit on my stationary bike for 45 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes. And that helps me kind of understand. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have lunch, and then I can, finish my day at work and all that other stuff. And like that, having that routine is so important, because then you can maintain it so much easier.
Yeah.
I think that's really valuable.
Well, it definitely happens for me at my job, because the high school day is so regimented. It's so routine.
Oh yeah.
The bell, you live by the bell. And when I've been building routines into my day. So obviously I have to teach my classes, but on my off periods, there's like certain things I do during those periods. And it's great. Even though like one of them is just like, I always eat a salad 7th period. So like now I'm eating a salad every day, which is good for you. It's something,
So I've been told.
Yeah, I understand this is good for me. So
yeah,
I'm like trying to build in these like habits that are helpful just into the fabric of the day. And it takes the thinking out,
Yeah.
That's where I get killed when I don't have a schedule. Like I always think during my breaks, summer vacation, I'm going to be so productive. I could do like 2 or 3 albums this summer. Like, come on. I got all day every day, and because I have all day every day, it's so loose. There's no schedule to it, and the time just slips away. And I have to decide always to do it. I have to decide, okay, I'm going to do this now, instead of the time just pops up and like, okay, it's time. It's time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about having a limited amount of time, because it motivates you to actually do something. And like, our brains are so bad at like understanding what a week of time is, or like what a month of time is, where it's just like, that's infinity. Like I can just do stuff later. That's fine.
Right.
And like having that like really strict schedule is really, it can be valuable. I've tried doing like a scheduling thing where I like try to block out hours of my day. Like every hour, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do work, and then I'm going to have this much time for lunch, and then the exercise. And when I get off work, I'm going to do this and this and this. And it's like, it worked, but it was very, very hard to maintain. And I think that there is value in it if you are the type of person that can maintain that. One of my buddies, he goes by Shaka Panda online, and he mentioned that to me, and he said that the person that taught him that was just like, you might feel like that's really like restrictive, like, oh, you don't have any time to do whatever you want, but But to his perspective, it's like, this is really freeing for me because I don't have to think about what I need to be doing right now. And I'm scheduling things that I like to do or that I want to do. And it's just like that was a really interesting shift for me where I was just like, oh, wait, no. If I just schedule all the things that I like to do, then I don't have to worry about whether or not I have time to do them because I scheduled them already. I planned them all out for myself. And like, I think that there's a lot of really interesting value in that. I just couldn't make it work for me. And maybe I just kind of approached it in the wrong direction, but I should try that again. Actually, I think that would be a really interesting experiment. Because I think that was before COVID and everybody getting locked inside their houses for 2.5, 3 years. So maybe it would be better these days.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, because it was really easy to let the time pass at that point.
Oh, yeah. It was tough.
I went a good few weeks where I was like kind of not really doing much, and then I made like some plans and some routines that really helped a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I still
being a very productive time in the end, but I could see how easily it was going to slip away.
Yeah. Even still, I do like daily to-do lists. Like I just write down, even if it's super basic stuff like have dinner or ride my bike or whatever, like just writing stuff down and having stuff that I can check off every day. It's so valuable because beyond that, like things don't slip through the cracks as easily then because like I tend to not forget things that I mean to do, but I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I'll do it tomorrow. It's like, no, it's on my list. I got to at least do it today because I don't want to write it down for tomorrow again. So, even if it's like call one of the utilities and get a question on my bill answered or something like that. It's just having everything listed out, and that's my tasks for today. And that does help. But it can be easy to waste time still.
Yeah. I get killed with the deciding point. What am I going to do? And a lot of times I don't remember the things I intended to do at those moments. I was telling you before we started, I was supposed to call a doctor, and I didn't all week long until just before we spoke. So it was like, I should have just had that on a list, and I should have, because I looking back on my week, like it was a busy week, but there was time. There's kind of like always time if you really look and if you're really deliberate about it. But having it in front of you is helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe I've usually better about that, but maybe I've slipped a little.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely slipped too. The list that I flashed on the screen was from last week because I've been not feeling well this week. So honestly, this whole week's been a blur for me. Like I don't feel like I've done anything useful because I don't have a list to I don't have any remembering of like what I've done and what I haven't done. It's all just kind of mushed together, and I need to get back on my list, and I need to figure out what's the priority for me to work on this weekend and try to get back into a schedule. And it's not like a grind. It's not like anything like that. It's just like finding a pace that works for you, and then understanding that, this is the limitations that I have, and I want to work within those, but I also need to be productive within those, like with the time I have. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise it's just a blur. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you said, maybe the first time we spoke even, that keeps coming up for me is you were talking about budgeting your time like money, like figuring out like how much, just like you would with your money and your bills, like how much time are you going to have to work on stuff in a week. And I was saying this just the other day in my class for Berkeley because we're doing our final project. It's like, be realistic. If you think you have 2 hours this week collectively to work on the project, that will show you that you don't have 45 minutes to choose a kick drum sound.
Yeah.
Just like you gotta do the most important things to get it done. Just like you wouldn't, you have to buy food, you have to pay your rent. You've got to do those important things before you can do the luxury of surfing through kick drum sounds for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And and especially with something like Ableton where it's easy to switch it out. Like you just have to drag a new sample on there and you can audition it right in the thing. So, yeah, it's like finding that stuff is, it's hard to do something that's good enough, like do something to finish like that criteria and move on. Like just putting any kick drum in there and then maybe like EQing it down just so it sounds a little closer to what you want. And you'd be like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to move on to the next thing. And if that drives me crazy in 10 minutes, I can come back and fix it. But most likely it's fine. And then, then it gets back to the tweaking later on. But the whole process of making stuff like that is there's diminishing returns. Like the first 30 minutes of making a song, you make so much of it. And then, then you go into like tweaking it and you go into like maybe adding another section. And like, you have to make sure that first 45 minutes or 30 minutes or however long it takes, that really explosive creative energy right at the beginning where you have the idea, like you want to make sure you get as much out as possible there. And then all of the minutia of like tweaking knobs or changing around samples or messing with synths and stuff, that can happen later. That's not really necessary right away. When you have the idea and you want to get that idea out, you need to get it out right now, because otherwise that'll drift away.
Yeah, I agree. And it is a funny thing that like it almost all of it happens in the beginning. 85% of it is early on. And then it's, like I'm working on songs right now for a little album, and I think all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them were January's jams.
Nice.
Over the last like year or two, maybe 3 even. There might be one lingering around from like 3 years ago that I just never finished. But they like all kind of popped together that first day, and now as I'm working on them, it's like, okay, I'm listening. Now I'm taking them into my car. And I'm like, all right, I should just raise the vocals a little bit on this one. and like the whole effort of like a music making session is just like turning vocals up like 3 decibels. So it just sits a little better, or just these minor tweaks now. Like it gets more and more minor. For me, the way I figure I'm done is really like, I just don't hear too much anymore that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, that's how I approach it as well. Like when I make the 2-hour track challenges, I have them exclusive to my Patreon for a year. So I just kind of finish the song and I just ship it off to Patreon. But after that year, then I go back and I try to prepare the album for like an actual distribution release, which means that I go back and I have to like kind of remaster and do another mix down on all these songs, and some of them are fine and some of them are definitely not fine. But the whole process of finishing an album is very similar for me, where I just listen to it and I just write down all the notes that I think of when I listen to it, and then I do all of those notes, and then I write down, I listen to it again, I write down notes. And then when I don't write down any more notes, I'm like, okay, this is probably good enough. Where it's like, it's not perfect. Like I'm sure if I listened to it a dozen more times, I'd find more things that I didn't like about it. But it's just like, I've spent X number of hours listening to this, and I think, I don't hear anything glaring. Nothing's like jumping out at me and bothering me. It's like, that's good enough. Get it out there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's the reward is like moving on.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I like that.
Like I, after a while, I just don't want to work on it anymore.
Yeah, you get that fatigue.
There's something like, maybe I could overhaul all the drums, but it's like,
that would be so much.
Set of songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Overhaul the drums on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Take that lesson.
It'd be so much work to like redo all this stuff, and it's like, you know what? It's fine the way it is. It's okay. Like I totally appreciate people who can get like really, really super like minutia detailed. Like Mr. Bill is like a great example for that, where every microsecond of his songs has something different going on. His Ableton projects have like 200 layers of like just different little things that are going on and everything. And I super respect that, but I don't have the patience for that. And I don't know if that's just the way my brain works kind of thing, or just like the genre that I work in. But I just really want to jam something out, and I just want to make it sound neat, and then I just want to move on to the next one. That's my focus. That's my goal.
Well, even Mr. Bill, when you watch him work, he was working fast.
That's true. I did.
Extremely
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
You know, he knows every key command, and
Yeah.
he's really good at his computer, even just navigating the computer and the operating system and all those little things that go into it. I think
He has an attention for detail that I just don't understand. And like, I super respect him for that. I don't know how he can be so detailed on some of this stuff. And you're right. He is very fast. I learned quite a bit from his YouTube videos. Yeah. Especially when it comes to sample manipulation.
And I think he's also experimenting a lot too, and going with the results of his experiments.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
He's like going fast. He's trying things out, and like he's got a great ear for what works and what he likes too. So he's making these decisions real fast, and yeah, some of it's extremely complicated, and that his kind of music is very. I guess I don't know if you call it IDM. Like it's so hard to put anything in a genre, but it's like very intellectual in its way, in that there's, like you said, there's always something changing and moving and something to grab your interest in a way that's also not like, it's not the kind of, it's a great balance, because you can definitely do that and then you just don't hear anything. It's just like I've found myself, there's like a point where you hear all these different things happening and working together, and then a little bit past that it's just one thing. It's
just like it loses that cohesion, and all of a sudden it's just a bunch of noises, and you don't really know how they connect anymore. I definitely went through an IDM phase when I was like in my 20s, and there's definitely that point where it's just like, this is great, interesting music that like explores a lot of things that, it's just noise now. Like, I don't get it anymore. It's like, and like, that's everybody can enjoy music differently, of course, but it's just like, I definitely, Mr. Bill definitely treads that line very gracefully, where everything he does has intention and purpose. And like, it's just always really well done.
Yeah. I think there's that kind of, committing, moving forward, just constant momentum, pressing forward, pressure forward, that is central to it.
Yeah. And I guess really that's a lot of the music that I write is written in a very similar manner, where I start with an idea that just at the start of the song, and then I just keep evolving that idea until like, okay, I don't have any more thoughts. I guess the song's done now. And I think Mr. Bill like kind of bounces around his projects a little bit more, but I really like the process of just like looking at a particular idea and seeing where it goes. And sometimes that means that you have like choruses and verses and you're just kind of repeating yourself. And other times that means it's more progressive, where you just go from like A to B to C to D, and then, from there. But yeah, just like not going into a project with expectations of what that project eventually will be, but just kind of starting something and seeing where it goes from there. Like, you're exploring that, together with the song, or in my case with like the Twitch community and stuff, where it's just like, you make stuff and you move on and you see what happens. And I think that kind of exploration is really cool.
Yeah. And I think like you're proof of this, obviously. Like, you just start to figure out what's working. You start to realize what direction to go, what turns to make, based on the different challenges and problems, maybe even that arise along the way. With a piece of music, and there always are. There's never. I even stuff that comes kind of quickly sometimes. There's always something that comes up along the way where you're like, oh, wait a minute, we gotta figure this out here. But with all that experience of just pressing through, you start to get your, your tricks and techniques you can turn to.
Yeah, and I think that's really how, like, people have asked me either on my Discord or whatever, like, how you develop a style, like how you develop your own style, or like your personal sound. And really the best answer I have for that is to just make things in the most convenient way for you possible. And eventually that will be your style. because like my style is like I play some chords. Sometimes I do like improvised jazz over it, and then like I mess around with drums until it sounds neat, and then that's pretty much it. Like it really depends. Like, and I feel that my style is mostly just because I've found systems that work for me. Like most of my songs are written in C minor because I'm most comfortable improvising in C minor. And you know, a lot of my stuff is very heavily kind of chord based on the like the ones and the threes or whatever. And it's just like I try to keep it kind of strict in that regard. And you know, that's it's easy for me to do that because that's what I'm comfortable with. But that also kind of, as a result, became my style. And you know, I think that it's really important to like not try to force that kind of flow. Like you get there eventually, and you just have to make stuff, and you find what works for you and what's convenient for you. And eventually your style will come through that, you know?
Do you ever bring like maybe like a challenge or a mission, or whether it's like I want to try to do something like that has this time signature, or maybe
definitely.
like, is there ever like when you start, do you come with just some sort of thing, or is it just kind of like how much planning?
Not as much as I used to. Let me grab something real quick.
Okay.
It won't probably come through very well. Where is it? I can't find it. So when I started, I thought
it didn't look very hard.
Yeah, I thought I knew where it was, and it wasn't there. So when I started, the Video Game Music Academy released some checklists that were like, you know, try a pirate theme song, or try making a song that's a palindrome, or trying to do all of these like weird, like just kind of mechanical explorations of how to write music, you know, like either genre based or trying to just do something weird inside of that, try to do something in a weird time signature or whatever. And I went through all of those, and that was a really, really formative experience for me. This is like way back in seasons 1 and 2, I think, for a lot of the 2-hour track challenges, which they really helped me a lot. But the flip side of that was they were exhausting. Like going into a particular song with a challenge in mind can be really, really good at combating the empty canvas syndrome, where it's just like, you know, I don't know what to do because I don't have any ideas. So I guess I'll just start like mashing the keys until something happens, where it's like, if you come into a song being like, make a song that's palindrome, then it's like, okay, well, I'll just play a melody and I'll see if it sounds good backwards. And there we go. Like I have a starting point. That song was called "If I Had a Hi-Fi," which is also a palindrome. That was a really fun song. When we're building the show notes, I'll try to find all these songs. More recently, I still do challenges once in a while. Back in October, I did a challenge where I just named various minerals for a month. So I had like jade and bismuth, and I think one was a geode, which isn't really a mineral, but whatever. And then the fourth one of that series was called Petrified Wood. And I love that song. It's probably like my top 5 songs, if not higher. Where the conceit for that song, aside from it just being like, about a mineral, the conceit for that song was, what if I freezed the reverb every other bar? So there would be a bar of music, and then every second bar would be like, just I freeze the reverb, and then I turn it off in another bar of music and I freeze the reverb, which like mechanically in the song gives it that feeling of being like starting and then stopping and then starting and then stopping, which, you know, kind of ties into the whole Petrified Wood theming a little bit. And then that was also one of the few songs that I have written lyrics for, and I love the lyrics for that song too. So that was like a perfect storm of ideas, where it's like I had a really interesting theme to start with. The song itself was good, which I guess is also important. But then I also had like a lyrical idea about like not only like just like the process of change, because the way that Petrified Wood changes is it essentially decays, and while it decays, minerals seep into its organic structure and replace it. So it's like you're not moving, but you're still changing. And like the lyrics kind of talk about that from a perspective of like a relationship or something like that, where it's just like, things aren't moving in the relationship, but the relationship is still changing and evolving and growing. And it's just like everything about that song, I'm just like very, very pleased with. Like I said, it's probably like my top 5 or higher favorite songs of all time. So yeah. And another challenge that I do is at the end of every season for the 2-hour track challenge, I do a community audio challenge where people just send me whatever's on their phones or like whatever random samples they just like, or like something that like some kind of quotes from YouTube or whatever, as long as it's like not copyrighted. And then I take all of those, I smush them all together and I try to make a song out of them. And sometimes it turns out great and sometimes it's a big mess. And I think that making a big mess is sometimes a lot of fun too. Where you get like flamenco guitar and some like weird radio station from like the 80s and you get like all of this other stuff and you just kind of mash it all together and see what happens. And I think it's a really good exercise in absurdity, if that makes sense, where it's just like, I'm going into that knowing the song itself isn't going to be like, pop top 50 hits or whatever. It's going to be not bad, but it's going to be weird. And like the whole point is just to make something that's just weird and fun. And I think that more people should try to just make dumb art just for the sake of making dumb art and not trying to be like, oh, this is going to be my next masterpiece, And it's just like, I'm going to spend 2 hours making something stupid and I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. And maybe somebody else out there will like it too.
I think that's a really liberating experience.
Oh yeah. It's awesome
to just make a mess, like you said, or just silly or,
one of my favorite things when I'm streaming is when I get to the point, and it doesn't happen on every song, but when I get to the point where being like, this is really dumb, I love this, where it's just like you're adding like the Roblox oof sound, or you're adding like all of these little like stupid things like in the background of a song, or you just do something mechanically within the song that's just like, this is really dumb, but I like doing it. There was a song a couple weeks ago called Jalapeno Hot Chocolate that I made, where it's just like the song is fine. Like, it's just like kind of a jazzy jam song. And then it fades out. And then I'm like, it'd be really dumb if we brought everything back. Like, it's just like a super fake out ending. So the song's like, it's done. It fades out. Like, it's like a solo and everything. And it fades out to nothing. And like 2 seconds later, like the saxophone just comes back and then everything else comes back. And it's just like, this is so stupid. I love this. Yeah. And then it just fades out again, where it's just like, fake out. And then it's like, okay, bye. It just made me really happy how dumb that was. But it's like, that's the whole thing. And if somebody else gets a kick out of it, then that's good too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Having a sense of humor with it is great. And it's fun. And it's liberating. Yeah. Like,
oh yeah.
Like that feeling of having to be like a serious artist.
Yeah.
Is annoying. It's a great way to get stuck and frustrated with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course,
really constricting. Yeah,
it's nice to, when you really capture something for yourself and you really hit on something that is important to you is great. But to always feel like you have to do that is, I don't know. It's just, it's like unhealthy, or it's almost not genuine to me too, that I'm like, cause I'm not always like that. I am silly a lot of the times, actually. It's a big part of my life is just being a silly idiot.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be okay with that and accept it. And, it takes a little bit of the heat off you I don't know.
It makes things feel less serious. Like you said, like you don't want art to be a serious, like, oh, I'm going to do this art. I'm doing an art today. Like that's not how you should do it. You should have fun. Like, something that I've said a lot is that the actual art that you make is a byproduct of being an artist. Like being an artist should be enjoying making things, not making things. Like, does that make sense? Like,
right.
You should have fun with the process, and through that process, art is created, but who cares like what's created? If you didn't have fun making it, then why did you make it in the first place? Like, I don't know. I might not have expressed that very well. I know some people want to express like some very deep seated emotions, and I understand that. Like I want to make sure that like people, every art you make is valid. It's just like it should be a process that you enjoy the process. You should enjoy the process, and the art that comes out of it is less relevant than the process that you went through to make it, whether that was fun or emotionally cathartic or something like that. Because there's definitely some albums that I made that have a lot of emotional that I have a lot of emotional attachment to. I finished an album in 2021, I think, called The Moon Seems Unaffected. And this is like a really kind of dark, soulful, jazzy album. And that was around the time my grandparents passed away, and like we were in the midst of COVID and like all of this other stuff. Like I was going through a lot, and I wanted to find a way to express this. And you know, that's just what came out. And, you know, I was going through a lot at the time, and like, I still enjoyed the process of making this stuff because it allowed me to push some of these emotions out more into the front and center, and just trying to like figure out how to kind of cope with all of this stuff that's happening. So, but yes, I got off topic again. Like the whole point
topic.
of being, there's that too. But I feel the whole point of being an artist is to enjoy, or at least be entertained by the process of making things. And then like the art that actually comes out of that is just a byproduct. Like that's something for other people to enjoy. Like you can enjoy it too, obviously. Like I listen to my songs all the time, but like the art that comes out of it is not really the goal. The goal is to have fun, or to be entertained, or to have some kind of emotional connection to the actual process of making things. And that's very important to me. And maybe that's more of a personal approach. I'm not really sure.
I think it's a good way to look at it. I really I heard this said too by a number of people, but it really stuck with me when Adam Roxar said it. Maybe you're familiar with his work. He's Aesthetic Candy on Instagram, makes all these really weird cartoons.
I've heard of it.
Does Max for Live devices. He did Glitch GIF, newer one called Brain Candy, which I really love. I got to put a link in the show notes for that, because that's
you'll have to send me some stuff. I love the idea of Max for Live devices. I really want to get more comfortable coding those devices. I know that Tom Cosm used to do some really wild ones where he like made synths out of stock tickers and stuff like that, but actually like reached into the internet and grabbed various things that controlled knobs in his Ableton instance. And
dreams of his somehow he was doing. I mean, he does a lot of
yeah. And like I would love to have like internet enabled like synths and stuff like that, so I could just have it Ableton running, and then whatever the internet is thinking, you know, at this moment affects how the music actually plays and that kind of stuff. That's really intriguing for me. I really want to try to dive more into Max for Live coding, because I think that would have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, probably can. What Adam does, he's professor at NYU, and he's what's I really like about him is his art is also totally like insane, like psychedelic, weird, like blobby characters, like made out of. It's just really cool, original, interesting stuff. But he likes to work very fast, and he thinks of his art as artifact. So it's just like you said, like byproduct, like what you leave behind. Just like when you, when we, excavate some ancient ruins, we're not finding the masterpiece of the pottery. It's what they used. It's what they were working with and what they had, and it's just what was left behind. And that I like the freedom that affords you too. Where again, it's almost like a diary entry. It's just where you were in that moment. It captures the time period of your life and what you're doing, just like you said with that album of yours. What'd you say? It was The Moon Seems Unaffected?
The Moon Seems Unaffected. I think it was like early 2020 when things were starting to get kind of crummy. and I read a tweet by one of my friends that said that. It was like, the moon seems unaffected, and it was just a photo of the moon. And for some reason, that really like stuck with me. And I reached out to the guys like, can I use this image and your tweet as like essentially the cover and name of my album? And he's like, yeah, totally. That's fine. It's just like, it was a really cool interaction that allowed me to essentially kind of springboard into a whole album. I'm sure that it's been done before where like some random tweet has inspired an album before, but this one definitely, it was just one of those things where like the right combination of things happened at the right time. And all of a sudden, like this whole idea formed in my head. And I'm really glad that I was able to get it out there.
Well, I think that's like, you're wearing like the artist like lens, you know, you're looking at stuff, and that's a great way to be. Like whether you're watching a movie or you're reading a newspaper article and you're just like, oh, that's a cool line. That's a fun idea. Let's go there. Sometimes you just overhear people say things. And I think that's part of having like an artist mindset. You're just kind of open to things, and you notice when things have a funny sound, or they make you think, they affect you in some way.
Yeah, there's like a little, I can't remember where we even got this. I think it was like a pre-roll from Michigan or something, but when you open it, it makes like the perfect like Prada snare, not a Prada snare, but it makes like a perfect like snare sound for like some like really tight, you know, like stuff. I can't remember where we got this. It was, I might have gotten it from a friend or something.
It almost sounds electronic.
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's like very, very tight and signy almost. And like, it just has a really great transient. I love it. I need to like sample it more so I can use it more, but it's just like, it's like the perfect sound. And I just keep it nearby in case I ever need something like that. And I have like a whole box down here that's just full of noisemakers and other stuff. And it's like right nearby. So whenever I need something, I can go in there and I can grab it. And I think that's really important too. Like the accessibility of having your tools nearby, whether they're physical or like on your computer, just making sure that you have everything that you need to make stuff. Because again, when you have that idea, it can float away really quick, and you want to make sure you get it locked in as early and as quickly as possible.
Right. Well, like anybody doing any kind of work, you watch somebody building a house, like they have a tool belt. You know, they got everything they need. They're not like on the roof and like, I could really use some nails. Let's climb down and get the nails. And then now we need a hammer. Like, you know, that's the only way to get work done, is to really have things accessible and ready. And that's a great idea. I gotta steal that one from you. Just have a little box of, because I've always got like, whether it's sometimes like a medicine bottle, and these vitamins I get or the medicine I get for my dogs come with this little, I guess it's like silica gel, you know, do not eat silica gel. But it's in like this little round barrel type of shape thing. And it's just such a great little shaker sound. It's just real tight and concise.
Yeah.
That,
you get that Mark Ribier thing where he has like 700 shakers on his desk.
Just having that. I should have more of those, because I do that too, but they're just kind of scattered around. And because the way I guess I'm thinking more is one day I'll make like a drum rack out of it, but to just have it handy, that's smarter.
Yeah, and I've sampled a lot of this stuff. Like I used to. I don't really do it as much anymore, but I used to make sample packs and stuff, and I sampled a lot of this stuff. But I still like having it like physically with me, just so if I need something very specific, I can just grab it and just like, you know, whatever, and make the sound, and then just put it on my desk if I need it again for the project. And the whole box idea, I think I was watching a Chromeo video where it was like behind the scenes, and they were talking about kind of their studio, and they were just like, this is our box of weird crap, you know. It's just like it had like little tambourines and like all this other stuff that works really well as a layer for drums, but not really like something that would be, you know, forefront in the drums, but something you could layer on top of a snare or like put behind the hats or something. And just having the ability to grab something to make things sound more unique and real and distinct, I think is really valuable when it comes to that. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And that again is like that open eyes lens. we talk about that in the sampling class a lot. I'm always thinking that, like, whenever something makes a noise, I'm like, oh,
Oh yeah.
let's record that, or let's capture that. Let's get that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think that YouTube is the new sample crate because there's always so many interesting sounds. And obviously you run into some like legal troubles if you grab certain things, but I think that it's so important to always have like your ears on, like you said, just to be like, well, that's a cool sound. I should preserve that. And I have a folder on my desktop called Sample Crate where it's just like anytime I hear something interesting, I just snag it as fast as I can. I just throw it in there. And if it has like a YouTube video or a Twitter link or whatever, like I try to attribute that. Like I put like the YouTube ID video number or whatever in the actual file name so I can go back and reference it if I need to. But I always try to just grab things that I find interesting because you don't want to be the guy where you're working on a song. It's like, oh, I heard this video like 2 weeks ago and it had this perfect sound in it. But I don't remember the video name or where it is or where it is in the video, 47 minutes into a 2-hour long video or whatever. It's just like, so it's like, you got to grab that stuff right when you hear it and then preserve it and just make sure that it's like available to you because, it's really hard to find stuff. The internet is very vast these days and it's tough to find things again.
Yeah, sometimes I find myself thinking like, I'll record it next time or I'll get it next time. But you're right. Whenever I think that, the odds of me getting it drop like 99%. So.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to Mr. Bill, like his approach to a lot of his sound design stuff is just to record everything he does, like just to have all of his sound experimentation, like sessions just recorded into like a 30-minute long, audio file. And then he goes back and he picks and chooses the things he likes. And I learned a lot from watching, some of his YouTube videos on that, just being like, just start recording, just record, Ableton's output and then just go nuts. Just like start fiddling with knobs and messing around with presets and all this other stuff. And you're guaranteed to get some cool stuff out of it.
Yeah.
You just have to go back and
make too.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in a controlled environment, because in a controlled environment, you're just like, oh, well, I have to make this, and this. And then you don't really experiment the same way. But if you have like this long audio file where you can just go through and just like kind of grab interesting sounds, and then you can always just mess around with them more. Like if you need to change the pitch or if you need to, make this sound a little less, low cut it or, whatever, like you can do that, but you have all of these weird experimentations that you can mess with. And I think that having that chaos is very, very valuable.
Yeah. Have that stuff ready to go when you're working. Yeah. Especially when you're doing your 2-hour time limit, you can't be really going off on those, divergent experiments all the time. Just like the other thing you say about budgeting your time, it's very easy to like start sound designing or start doing all that stuff that eats into what you're doing. And I'm a big believer, like if you're on an idea, you've got like, to me that's always the king, right? Like if I like this idea for the song and it's like that's because that's the hardest thing to hold on to. Yeah. Like I can do sound design and come in and out of that a lot easier than I can like on the vibe and the feeling of a song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the desire to want to make it. So I have to chase that when it comes up, and by being like, yeah, this is really cool. It's awesome. It'd be great if I had the sound that sounded like, squeaky, and I'm making it. Yeah. Odds are I'm going to be out of that song, out of that feeling. It's just going to take me away. So to have it handy,
absolutely,
to get to is key.
Yeah, and I have a very similar problem with that, where like a lot of my 2-hour songs aren't electronic music. They're not like house music or EDM, because EDM is a really cool genre, but it's all sound design. Like it's all just like making this synth sound weird and interesting and cool and making these drums like really pop and hammer through everything else. And it's all like side chaining and all this other stuff. It's all very technical, which is it focuses a lot more on the mechanics of making music rather than some of the other things that I like to focus on, which is like the solos and stuff. And it's not to say that EDM doesn't have its own like that kind of stuff too, but when I make it anyway, it's a lot of sound design, and it takes so long for me to do any of that stuff. I struggle very much with it. And it eats away a lot of my time when I try to do that. So when I do house music or something on there, it's usually like minimal house or like dub tech or something that's a lot more atmospheric, and like you can hide behind reverb a little bit better there, which, you shouldn't hide behind reverb, but sometimes you gotta.
Yeah. Well, if you want to do like the Petrified Wood track.
Oh yeah.
Where that's the focal thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the same time, I think a lot of EDM has a structural like formula to it as far as the arrangement goes. There's more like expectations of like, all right, we're gonna have our intro, then it's gonna build, then it's gonna drop, and so there's a little bit. Maybe you save a little time in that department.
That's true.
And that's
sometimes
a generalization too, but some of the other stuff requires like there's more room, I guess, for. How long is this section? What's the next part? Is it a verse? Is it a chorus? Is it a...
Yeah. I mean, that's true. When I did yesterday's song, like I said, I wasn't feeling well, and I kind of started over an hour and a half in. Like I ended up spending another hour, maybe an hour, 15 minutes, and I finished a song, which ended up being like 6.5 minutes long, 6 minutes long, just because it was, a house track, and it was something that was very structured. So I was just like, okay, I made the chorus, copy paste, change some of the notes around, maybe change some of the melody. I don't like just doing a straight copy paste a whole lot with that kind of stuff. I like to make sure that there's some kind of variation or things move around a little bit. But like it was a lot easier to build the structure of that song, because like that genre kind of dictates that that's how some of this stuff is supposed to be arranged. So it was easier to make a long song, and that, the length of the song doesn't necessarily determine the quality, but it was much easier to put that song together once I had a general idea for it. So yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
Is that Lunar Descent?
Yes, it is. I made that one yesterday.
Because I see that one says 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Well, that's because I included all of the failure. Because I think one of the reasons why I like streaming is because it doesn't show my successes all the time. It shows me struggling. And I think that it's really valuable to showcase the idea that, I've been writing music for 25 years now. Like I've been doing music for a very long time. And that doesn't mean that I can just sit down and do whatever I want whenever I want to. Like health issues that I've had aside this week, like I still struggle. Like I still sit down and I have no ideas, this week. And sometimes it takes some time to figure out, how I want to approach and resolve any particular song. And, I like, as frustrating as it is, and it is frustrating for me to be like putting on a show and being like, guys, I have no idea what I'm doing today. Like I try not to get frustrated, but it can be frustrating that I'm not like putting on a good show, where I'm just like spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. But I think that it's important to showcase that and not like hide it. I think that it's important to show that even though you've been doing this for over 2 decades, like it's still hard. It gets easier mechanically, but creatively it's still very difficult. That part doesn't always get easier. And sometimes things flow really well and sometimes they don't. And that's just how it goes. It's just kind of like being an artist in general, I guess.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the art is in figuring that stuff out. I had Alex Walker on. Goes by Human Synthetics, and he's a big live streamer too. And he was saying the same thing. Like it's not always magical. It does sometimes come with the obstacles, the struggles, and things aren't working. But to show that, I think especially for people that are newer and think it's gonna be magic every time, because I think that's because that's all you see, right? For the most part, you hear the release and it's like, wow. It's the best thing I made this year. And it's all polished, and sometimes teams of people have worked on it. And then you try to do it yourself and you're like, oh my God, I can't do it. terrible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice to put that out there. That's just like, sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like the YouTube series from Mr. Bill and Tom Cosm, they were the big drivers for me getting into streaming, because like, you watched, I think Tom Cosm specifically had videos that were just like, no talking, just production. And it was just like, a 3-hour long video of him just figuring stuff out. And like, I think that kind of format is really interesting. And I am nowhere near like Bob Ross, but like Bob Ross's The Joy of Painting is super inspiring for me, because he not only like did something every week, he sat down and he made a painting, but he also explained it in a way that made people kind of understand the process, and maybe tried to encourage people to try it themselves. So it's just like, this isn't sorcery. Like you know what you're doing, and you just have to learn the tools. And once you learn the tools, you can actually just make whatever you want. And I think that is really inspiring for me. I really like Bob Ross. I actually have a Funko Pop on my desk of him that my wife gave me. Oh, nice.
I got I don't know
little
what he is.
bobblehead?
Little bobblehead type of thing.
Yeah.
Bob, I think he
So-
says stuff if you push a button on here.
Oh boy.
This be a good place for my little squirrel to live.
It's be a good place for a squirrel.
Let's put a few little highlights in here just to make them little rascals just sparkle in the sun.
That's great. Yeah. And like, I think that having that kind of vulnerability is not the right word, but having that kind of vulnerability where you can just stand up, in Bob Ross's case, or just like sit in front of an empty canvas, and over the course of 30 minutes or 2 hours to actually create something out of nothing, and have that being visible every step of the way is something that's really important to me. And it was very inspiring to me when I was watching The Joy of Painting. And I wanted, that's one of the many reasons that I got into this, aside from Bob Ross and Mr. Bill and Tom Cosm and Chromeo and all this other stuff. Like all of these other artists are kind of the big inspirations for me. So
Yeah. Watching Bob Ross was like one of the best parts about staying home from school sick as a kid.
yeah, that and
Usually
Wheel of
the,
Fortune.
Yeah. I did a little book, like, I don't know, 30 or so pages.
I read that.
Like
Yeah, that's
things
good.
we learned from Bob Ross about music production.
Mhm.
And one of the things I put down was the show is called The Joy of Painting. It's not called The Joy of Your Painting. It's not called it's not called The Joy of Your what you made. It's the verb painting, not the noun,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's the act of painting. And I think that's a really good thing to remember when you're making music, when you're producing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people that play guitar or something, or piano, and they don't record anything. They just play. They come home from work maybe, and they strum some chords and maybe play a few songs, and it's gone, and that's it. The end of it.
Yeah.
It's not a product. There's no artifact. There's no byproduct. It's just the act. And
Yeah.
nowadays, everything has a record button. Everything can be, like captured, and most of the time I'm making music there's something recording it. And that's great. I love that. I don't
Yeah.
want it to taken away. But it is nice once in a while to just do it for no other reason than the
Yeah.
act of doing it.
Yeah. I think that's a very strong message. I like that a lot. And, sometimes it's fun to just sit down and do stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be a product. And, that's a whole nother conversation when it comes to being an artist, where it's just like everything has to be a product. Everything has to be a finished, finalized, whatever. And, it doesn't have to be. Sometimes you just make stuff for fun, and that's okay. And one thing that I like to do, and I know we're kind of going over time. I don't know what your schedule's like, but with my community, we have something called the 2-hour album challenge, which is something where essentially I draw a theme at random, and then I give everybody like a week or something to do their own 2-hour track challenge with that theme as a prompt. I think last theme was Alien. Either way, I think Alien was the last theme. So it's like, basically I said, make a song with a prompt of Alien, and we got like 50 something responses, and it was a lot of fun. And I'll give you the link for that too. I think the next one's coming up in April.
Cool.
But the one of the points that I want to make with that, and one of the goals that I have with that project is, one, that making music is not scary. Where it's just like, everybody's doing this, everybody's under the same challenge, and everybody's not going to put their best foot forward with this. They're all going to do their best, but sometimes stuff ends up a little rough. Like you have 2 hours to make a song. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And I think that it's really, really valuable to kind of everybody have the same limitations in that regard, because then, if it's not perfect, people will still be comfortable putting something out there and releasing it together. And then it also, like, once the challenge is done, we put all these songs together into a big compilation. We put them on Bandcamp and we sell that album for charity. And then, like, for a lot of the people that have been a part of, this challenge, it's like the first time any of their music has gone outside of their studio. And like, that's like really flattering for me personally, but like the whole idea that's like, making music isn't scary. Releasing audio, like releasing albums isn't scary. Like, if you want to do this, you should just do it. And, if you get one sale, that's awesome. If you get no sales, at least you did it. And like that whole process is like, just like personal growth, learning it goes back to how we started this. It's like learning how to finish things. It's like, you're only going to learn how to finish things if you start finishing things. And like, being able to be on an album, being a part of a community, and like growing together with people is so valuable. In the early 2000s, I was a part of a community called Section Z, which I think turned into a label, I think in the early 2010s. And Section Z was hugely formative for me because it was a community of artists who all just wanted to get better. Like, we'd post our songs. People would leave feedback, like actual genuine feedback, being like, like technical, like, well, this could be better here and this could be better there. And like, that whole process was so important to me, because it taught me to kind of listen to music and understand how other people's music, and like approach it from a more technical standpoint. It's being like, this could be better. And like, I better understand how to analyze music through that, because I listened to so many other people's songs, and I was able to just be a part of a community that wanted everybody to grow and to grow together. And I think that that's so valuable. And this isn't like me trying to sell, like, oh, join my Discord and it's like, you do whatever you want. But like, I just want people to be more comfortable, like, putting things out there, because there's no reason to keep things to yourself if you don't want them to be. If you have aspirations to release stuff, then you should just start doing it, because it's never going to be perfect, and that's okay.
And it gets so much easier after you
do it. It does. Yes, it gets so much easier after the first or second time. Like, it's just something that you do. It's just part of the process at that point, and it's not like some big scary thing. It's just pushing a button,
Yeah, it's only a little bit harder than putting a post on Facebook or something. Nowadays, exactly. When you use like the services we have now, it's just uploading something, and it's there's kind of funny things like no one's gonna come out and like harass you for it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe all these like, it's not a bad idea to like really think about what your worst fear is, and like imagine like, like your grandma's gonna call you, she's gonna be disappointed, and like your third grade teacher is gonna be like, see, I told you you'd never make it. There's like all of these like crazy ideas that like kind of circulate in our head, like people are gonna judge me. I think what really happens is you're a person that like did it. You finished and made something, and most people won't. Most people won't ever put that thing out. Most people won't share it, and you're now like one of those people that does that thing, and it's a great victory. It's really worth celebrating and being proud of, because it is hard. It is a little scary, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not gonna do anything but make you better and help you. And you said making music isn't scary, and it's not. That's what you realize, I guess, is it's actually not too scary. It's not too bad, you know. Yeah. It'll do so much more for you than it will for anyone else in a lot of ways too.
Yes,
so,
that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah. And the more you're, sorry, go finish your thought.
Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say.
Okay,
you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the more you're around other people who are in either the same position or, you know, above or below you when it comes to experience, like the more you learn that everybody's still trying to figure it out for themselves. Like, people ask me questions and people ask questions on the Discord or on Twitter or whatever, and it's just like, you know, sometimes I know the answer, sometimes I don't, and you know. Like I want to make the process not scary. Like I just want to make it like, you know, you just do your thing. You do your thing, you do what you're comfortable with. And like being scared of releasing something isn't what you should be scared of. It's just like, you know, just do your thing and be happy with, you know, the art that you can make.
Be scared of not releasing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that, but I also think that there's value in like the things you make being ephemeral. Like you said, like just going home at the end of the day and practicing a little bit and playing around a piano, like that's okay. I think that there's like a lot of value in just doing things for you. Like, so it's that balance, you know, like you want to release stuff. You want to make sure that what you put out is something that you're proud of, but you also want to make sure that you have, you know, things that are personal to you, and maybe you want to keep stuff for yourself. I don't know. It's all personal preference. It's really hard to quantify, which is, I think, the third time I've used that in the last hour, that word.
Yeah. Well, like you said, though, having a community of people that are doing it too, that understand and also like can help cheer you on, help you out, give you whatever advice they can. And also maybe not give you advice because they don't know either. Like that's a nice thing to realize too. There's comfort in that.
Yeah. And sometimes nobody else knowing is good advice too, where it's just like, I don't know.
I have found a lot of comfort in hearing that everyone struggles with all this stuff. And it's not because I wish pain on people, but it
makes
nice
me feel better.
Like it's not easy, and sometimes it looks easy because you just see the end, and sometimes maybe that like mystique of the artist has been, you know, just so deeply ingrained with us, like this person that was like struck by lightning on the mountaintop that has all the gifts, but even for them it's hard. I don't know anyone that I ever talked to that says hard, and even you're on 375 and you still find it challenging. I'm sure if it wasn't, you would have been moved on by now.
Yeah, and I do think that I will move on at the end of this year. Not necessarily like kill the project forever, but just like not do it every week and just kind of do a more relaxed stream where I just make music. I was kind of thinking about
minus just the challenge part, maybe.
Yeah, it would just be like music making stream where I would still try to make a song every week, both to keep my personal momentum going and to also fulfill like my obligation to patrons. Where it's like, you know, I said that I'm going to make a song every week, so I'm going to do that. But maybe I'll make, you know, like 30-second loops or something where it's like stuff for videos or stuff for video games and stuff like that, where I would make just like little consumable products that people can just drop into a video and automatically loops so they can just stretch it out for however long they want. And I think that there's still a lot of value in something like that. But then like the rest of the stream would be me just working on an album or like actually like learning something. Cause one of the problems with the 2-hour track challenge, like we talked about a little earlier, is that I don't have time to learn anything. Like I don't have time to be like, I'm encountering a problem. I don't know how to fix it. Let's sit down and learn how to fix it because I don't have time to do that. Cause I have a clock ticking down and I have to be like, okay, well, I've got 45 minutes left to finish this song. I don't have time to learn I mean, I know how chord inversions work, but like, I don't have time to learn how this particular thing works. Like either this like music theory thing or like a synth that I like how it sounds, but I don't know how to actually change the knobs to make it sound how I want. So it's like, sometimes I just have to rely on on really basic things. And I'd like to sit down and like learn and like run scales and like do all this other stuff and just like get better at the craft that I've invested so much time in. But it's the big problem with the 2 Hour Trek Challenge is there isn't a lot of opportunity to learn new things, but you can really hone your workflow through it. And I would still recommend anybody try it. I think that it's really valuable.
Well, there's probably in there some of the reason it's so daunting and complicated for people, because here we are, on one end of this podcast, like saying how important it is to do the discipline, to have the routine, to finish things, that's how you finish things. But on the other end, like, it's healthy to balance it with
absolutely.
Sometimes this isn't a song I'm going to finish, but this is the song that taught me how to use this drum machine I have, or this taught me a little bit about, whatever, EQing my drums. Yeah, so I spent all day EQing my drums, but now, because kind of like you said, not everything has to be a product either. So it's good to have like that healthy balance of, you want to finish things, you want to do that. And that balance, I think, is up to everybody. I mean, there's probably people that just want to EQ drums and just make them sound really cool. And what's wrong with that?
They should call me, because I'm very bad at doing drums.
Well, like there's a opportunity there for those people. Like, there are probably people that enjoy just making loops, and then you become like a sample pack maker or something.
Or like, I know there are a lot of hip hop artists that reach out on SoundCloud. They're just like, I like your loops. Like, can I use them for either practicing my own vocal stuff or, maybe like collaborating and stuff like that. Like, I think that even just posting stuff like that is a good way to make connections too. I know Bandcamp isn't really great at organic reach. Like, putting something on Bandcamp isn't going to get hundreds of thousands of people to look at it, but at least you have a place for it now. Same thing with SoundCloud and all that other stuff, or YouTube. YouTube's a pretty good place to just post your music too, because it's a little bit more searchable. But like you can build connections that way. And like, if you want a presence online, and not everybody does want a presence online, but if you do want a presence online, you have to be online. You have to be posting stuff, like tangible artifacts. And like, you can't just be like, hey, I'm making another album. It's like, no, like, give me samples of that album. What does it sound like? Make me excited about it, Like, and same thing with just like posting music. If you post that you make loops and you don't provide any of like the loops as samples, like, people aren't going to go out of their way to like dig up your website that goes to your SoundCloud that leads to the loops that are like 6-7 rows down in the page. You have to make that stuff like available right away. And the best way to do that is just to keep making stuff and keep putting stuff out there, and people will notice it. I mean, it takes time. I'm not like some big YouTuber. Like, I think I have 5,000 followers on YouTube, and the majority of that is because Red Means Recording shouted me out like 3 years ago. And I don't know how many people actually watch my videos. My average view count's like in the 30s, so it's not huge. But like, the fact that I keep posting stuff and I keep making things available for people, like, people notice, and I get comments once in a while, and it's great. Like, I'm making stuff for me, but I'm really glad that other people enjoy it too,
Yeah, I guess you got to find the balance that works for you.
Yeah.
It's satisfying.
It's all about balance. 100% all about balance.
Right. Because there's no answer. You don't have to do 375 weeks in a row of tracks. You don't have to. But like, that's an impressive accomplishment, and that's what's working for you. So
it is working for me, and I'm really pleased with that. And like, I would highly recommend everybody who does music or any kind of creative stuff to try timed challenges. I think they're very valuable for understanding how your workflow works, and like where the bottlenecks in your workflow are, because they used to be like making drums. They used to be doing sound design stuff, and I still struggle with sound design, but at least I know where my bottlenecks are, and I can try to avoid them a little bit with presets or something else. And time challenges are very important, but they're not for everybody, and that's okay. I think they're good tests to see how your workflow handles particular like creative challenges though.
Nice.
It's like unit testing. If you want to go into programming, it's like unit testing your creative skills.
Yeah, I agree. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, what do you say we wrap it up, huh?
Yeah, this time went super fast. We have to talk for like
Sure
an hour and a
did.
half, haven't we?
So we can send people to abstractionmusic.com. I think that's kind of
Correct.
like your hub, right?
Yeah, I have everything there.
You've also got ben-burns.gumroad.com where some of those sample packs, there's a lot of great sample packs on there. A lot of cool, interesting stuff. I love them.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them. I just haven't had time to make more. I used to do one every month, and I did that for 2.5 years straight, and I just got burned out. Partially, I don't know what to record anymore in this house. I think I've recorded every flat surface of this house, so I guess I need a new house.
Take a little field trip.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. Yeah.
Maybe if people want to support you on Patreon, we got Patreon /Ben_Burns.
Yes.
Anywhere else you want to tell people to go? Your music is all over the streaming services under Abstraction.
Yep, it's under Abstraction. You can, if you wanted to go to Spotify, you can put in abstraction.rocks, which will just drop you right there. If you wanted to check out my Twitch, I primarily do music production, but I also do game development and game design, usually on the weekends, and that's twitch.tv/Ben_Burns. Pretty much anywhere online you can find me at Ben_Burns, like Twitch, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube are the 4 big ones. But otherwise, yeah, I will provide a YouTube playlist of all of the 2 Hour Trek Challenge songs, as well as all of the production videos for 2 Hour Trek Challenge. Like, I don't really expect anybody to have like 700 hours free to watch all of the production videos. But if you hear a song that's interesting, I think that it's really cool that you can just click a link and then watch me make it, you know, like
and
I
even
think
just skip around, like see how it came together. It's really valuable.
Yeah. And having that like huge playlist is really important for that kind of stuff, because like if somebody wants to learn something, they can just watch the video of me making it. And I think that's really important. The 2 Hour Album Challenge is also another big one. That's 2hac.abstractionmusic.com. That's going to happen. I think we determined that that's going to happen mid-April. So I think like April 12th through the 16th, I think, is the next challenge. Let me double check that. I don't know when this episode is going live, but
we can kind of do whatever we want, but
okay.
It's probably scheduled somewhere. Probably wind up being somewhere around then. I think.
Yeah. It's April 12th through the 16th. So I'll be choosing a theme out of a hat on the 12th around 3 p.m. Central Time, and then that challenge is just going to go until Sunday, and make a song, submit it to the album, and be a part of an album for charity. We support a local foster cat company that's really, really nice. We've gotten all our cats through them. I think that's it. I don't know. I'm a lot of places, but I always down to talk with people. If you want to talk like one-to-one, feel free to reach out to me on like my website or on Twitter. My DMs are open for that. But if you want me on your podcast, I'm more than happy to talk about any of that stuff. I'm sure that once you hit episode 400 or so, I'll probably reach out to you again.
Yeah.
And we can talk some more.
I think that would be only fitting.
Bob Ross had 409 episodes. So my goal is to get more than that for the 2 Hour Trek Challenge.
Wow.
So was it 409 or 403? It's a little over 400. So once I beat Bob Ross, then I'm all okay.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on again.
Yeah, this is great fun.
Yeah, everyone check out Ben's work. A lot of great stuff, a lot of inspiration to be found, and give it a try. Try one of these timed challenges, whether you do it for an audience or just for yourself. It's eye-opening, I can tell you that. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun, and you learn a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone else.
Yeah.
Take care. Hey, if you enjoyed the Music Production Podcast, please consider giving it a review on your favorite podcast provider and share it with a friend, somebody that you think might enjoy the show and get something out of it. That would mean a lot to me. And if you want to check out more of my work, including sound packs, tutorials, etc., head over to brianfunk.com. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.